Putting together and installing a Ubiquiti network in your new home is not as simple as just buying a bunch of stuff, plugging it in, and bringing it online. There is lots of things you need to plan and considerations that you need to look at to put this thing together. So that is why I'm going to create a new series here on YouTube that covers this process from start to finish. It is going to cover things such as planning your network drops, to heat mapping, to picking out your equipment, installing it, and finally configuring it and bringing it online. This series is meant to help anybody who likes the idea of having a Ubiquiti network in their home, but really just wants to see the steps in order on how to make sure it goes smooth. Today's video is going to be focused around the planning. We're going to pick where our network drops are going to go. We're going to plan where our access points are going to go because any project like this starts with the cabling. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Ethernet Blueprint. My name is Tim Tritch, and on this channel, we focus on helping people just like you plan and build in a great network in your new construction home. Now, I'm excited to bring this series to you. Because there are several steps to this, there's no way we're going to do it in one video, so I felt the best way to handle this was to do a series of videos in order and kind of show you guys the process from start to finish. Now, obviously, your situation is going to be a little bit different, so hopefully you'll be able to grasp enough information and get some takeaways here in order to, put your project together. Now, one thing I will throw out, a couple things actually. A couple things I want to throw out. One, if there's something you'd like to see, please leave a comment. I will take comments and considerations to make sure we're covering all the topics that we need to talk about. And number two, if at any point while watching this video, you feel you need a little bit more of a deeper dive on the planning stage, guys, check out some courses I have in my description that take a much deeper dive and really break it down into simpler, more manageable steps. YouTube, we got to keep things rolling. We got to keep things high level. So I'm just going to show you kind of what's all involved, but we're not going to take a deep dive. Otherwise, these videos get to be too long, and I already get in trouble from my viewers saying that I talk too much. So the goal here is really just to give you a plan, show you what it kind of looks like. But if you need a little bit more of a deep dive, a little bit more explanation, guys, take a look at those. They're all very affordable and all could be at your fingertips instantly. Okay, all right, so let's get going with the video, guys. We're going to be focused on planning. We're going to break this down into 4 parts. And like I said, we're going to kind of breeze through those parts, but I want to show you what is involved, the things I think about when I help a customer build a new construction home. Let's take a look at it. All right, guys, so the first thing we want to plan in your home for your cabling is your network head end. All right, what is a network head end? The network head end is the area in your house where your equipment is going to sit. Where you put it in a rack or you stick it on a shelf is up to you. However, this is the area where all of the cabling you have pulled in throughout your house is going to be pulled back to so it can connect into the network. Now, you don't have to overthink the network head end location. And in Nebraska, we're kind of lucky. We have basements with utility rooms that are always cool and out of the way and nobody ever has to see it. So we're fortunate in that respect. However, a lot of you guys out there across the country don't have basements. And so, maybe some special considerations might need to take place. A lot of times we see them in offices, maybe a cabinet in an office or something. I've seen them underneath stairwells. So that's a particular place you could look at doing. Closets, hopefully larger closets, things like that. There are a couple things you want to take in consideration when picking one. One, you don't want your equipment to get too hot or dirty. So try to pick a place in your home that's going to have some decent airflow, or if you know you're going to put it in there, then maybe work airflow into your build so that room stays cool. You do not want your equipment to get really dirty or really hot because that's going to hurt the equipment itself, okay? So the goal here is to build an environment where your equipment will be out of the way, yet stay clean and cool so they can do their job, okay? Secondly is power. You're going to need to make sure you have some kind of power located where this equipment's going to go. It all has to plug in, right? So I always typically recommend having a UPS or a battery backup tied to your network equipment, but you don't have to. It's completely optional. I typically like to recommend to any of our homeowners that if they can put a dedicated circuit or a dedicated breaker to this location, that's a win, right? It solves the problem or potential problem of someone turning on a hairdryer or kicking on the air compressor in the garage, and all of a sudden you're tripping breakers and your network shuts off. So if you can get a dedicated circuit in there, great. If not, that's probably okay too. It's just one of those things you want to kind of take in consideration. Don't put a bunch of stuff on that same circuit, because you run the risk of, you know, your network equipment getting tripped or the breaker getting tripped when you turn on other devices, a vacuum cleaner or whatever, okay? So power is definitely consideration. And lastly, you just need some space, okay? You want the room or space big enough that if you have to get in here and get behind something or pull something out, you don't have to move your whole house to do it, right? So a fairly open space where you can get on all sides of your equipment is really beneficial to a network head end. And keep in mind, all your cabling is going to run here, whether it runs down through the wall or it runs right down the wall, okay? So you want to also kind of keep the aesthetic part of it in mind as well, especially if you're going to put this in an area that people may see in your home. We're going to do this in a way that looks nice, right? We don't want an eyesore in our house. We're building this nice new home. Maybe it's your forever home. You don't want an eyesore. So try to pick a place that has enough space that you can get on all sides, or if you put it in a rack, maybe you can pull the rack out because it's got casters on the bottom wheels. And that's how you get to it, but you want to be able to get to your equipment in case you ever have to service something. That's really important, right? We all have to reboot the modem sometimes. We all have to reboot the router sometimes, and we don't want that to be an event to do it where you got to go to get a ladder out of the garage and you got to climb up 30 feet to get to this thing. We don't want that, right? So, you know, try to pick a place that's convenient, but yet aesthetically pleasing for your new construction build. All right. So once you have your network head end planned, you can go to part 2, which is going to be your cable drops. And we're going to talk about that next. All right. So for part 2, we're going to be talking about cable drops. Now, I'm not going to give you a complete list here. I will rattle off a few things that maybe you want to take in consideration as you're putting this thing together. The first thing is TVs. If you have the opportunity to hardwire all your TVs, you need to do it. Run at least one Cat6 cable at a minimum to every TV location, because streaming ain't going anywhere, gaming ain't going anywhere, and so having a physical cable to each of those locations is so worth it, right? Yes, Wi-Fi is great, and it's becoming faster and faster and faster. However, they're constantly having to open up new frequencies because it's becoming more crowded. The spectrum out there that Wi-Fi uses is becoming more crowded. There's things that can interfere with it, including your neighbor's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth devices, vacuum cleaners, microwaves, baby monitors. All sorts of things can interfere with your Wi-Fi. So by having a physical connection, it just takes all that out of the equation, right? And the cost of not doing it is greater, I think, than the cost of doing it. And we're going to talk costs later in the series when we're picking out our equipment. We're going to talk some shop on that. So tune in for that part. But I really think it's important to have at least a cable drop, at least Cat6 at a minimum, run to each TV. Now, you may have special considerations. Maybe you're going to have a universal remote, or it's tying into a sound system that's, you know, back in another room. And in those cases, a lot of times extra cat cables pulled to the TV locations for control and to send video through and all sorts of crazy things that these AV specialists do might be needed. And in those cases, you want to talk to an AV specialist and determine how many cables would need to be pulled to those certain TV locations that met that criteria. However, at a minimum, bare minimum, what we're talking about today, at least one Cat6 drop to every TV location, okay? Secondly, we want to talk about cameras, guys. Wireless cameras are great. Ring is great. Blink. There's all sorts of them out there. They really are a decent system. However, I have just found that over time, either the signal deteriorates or a new interference moves into the neighborhood, and all of a sudden people start having issues with your cameras. I chalk them right up to the TVs as well. Why leave your cameras susceptible to interference if you don't have to, right? And we all want a clear picture, right? We want to read the license plate from 10 miles away. So that means larger data as these cameras get bigger and bigger and more pixels and all this stuff. A cable is going to be able to provide that for you better than Wi-Fi, just because it rules out all the other stuff. All the other interfering factors go away. Also, I will say, even with a a great designed Wi-Fi system in your home, Wi-Fi doesn't travel from indoors to outdoors very well. In general, your house is designed to keep wind and cold and sound and all the stuff where it belongs, indoors or outdoors. And so Wi-Fi has to go through these walls that are built to protect your home, and it doesn't always do a good job of that. So just something kind of consider. I'm not saying you can't do a Wi-Fi system out there that's a Wi-Fi camera system. However, at the time you're building, you need to do one of two things. You either need to pull a cable to each of your camera locations and just leave it there for a rainy day, okay? Or you need to give yourself the ability to pull a cable there later. And that's done with future proofing, right? Running some cabling or Smurf tubing or PVC piping from your network head end, wherever you choose that to be, to your attic space so you can pull cables at a later time. So cameras are really important. I really believe that having a nice Cat 6 or Cat 6A cable, and we can kind of talk about some of that too, is important. So definitely your camera locations. And the one thing I'll throw out to you too, guys, is you may not want cameras day one. I didn't. I lived in my house for 1.5 years before I added cameras. And so it was something that I'm glad I planned for, so I had the ability to add those cameras later, because it would have been very expensive and probably ugly to try and run those cables at a later time. This is the time to do it, guys. And you can plug those holes. You can leave cables hidden in soffits. You can do a lot of things so you never know it, or you'd never know it if you didn't know it was there. And then if you ever do need it, it's there for you. Okay? Third, I want to talk about is your access point locations, which we're going to get into some heat mapping here in just a second, and I'm going to show you exactly how to plan those access points. But we are going to be running a Cat 6 or Cat 6A or Cat 7 or whatever you do in your home to your access point locations. Okay, so third is your access point locations. And then fourth is really kind of a catch-all. Everybody's a little different when it comes to this. A lot of people will pull cables to bedrooms. I've seen people pull cables to living spaces that just, maybe just a lower jack in case you want to plug in your laptop. Maybe you work in there often. Offices is a really big one. I highly, highly recommend pulling at least a cable or two to offices. It just makes sense to be able to have that equipment that's sitting in there online all the time and isn't mobile to be able to physically plug in the network. That's just a preference of mine. I just think things work better. And so really those last drops are up to you. Sometimes people have golf simulators and all sorts of special things in your house. You're going to want to make sure you have a plan for all that equipment and have it pulled back to the network head end. Or pulled back. I've seen golf simulators actually pull back to their own little cabinet, and then you have to connect that cabinet back to the network. So it just depends on how your home and how that stuff is designed, okay? And the last thing I want to point out when it comes to cabling is outdoor stuff. So we kind of sort of touch base with it on the cameras, even though a lot of people have indoor cameras too. We're really talking about outdoor Wi-Fi or outdoor spaces that need a physical connection. Again, that Wi-Fi does a good job, but it doesn't cover all the bases. I highly recommend, especially if you're going to be entertaining outdoors or watching TV outdoors, you make sure you pull a cable to that TV, but you also potentially maybe have an outdoor access point to kind of cover that backyard, and we'll talk about that as well. So, planning your cabling, that is very, very important. And what we hope to take away from this, why do we care, right? There's a couple things we want to get from this as we do our planning. And it really boils down to our switch. So keep in mind that the more cable drops you add, the bigger switch you need to buy. And the more things that you have that are PoE, like cameras and access points, means you need a switch that is capable of powering all of that gear. So, while it's important to, put drops where you need them, I also will caution you not to be like, just put drops and, do an Oprah, you get a drop and you get a drop, Don't go too crazy with it, because as you do that, just know your switch has to get bigger to accommodate that, which adds cost to the overall project. Not a ton of cost, but it is cost. And so if you are a cost conscience friendly, type of person where you really do look at the numbers, guys, take that in mind. But it is by far the most affordable time right now to get cables where they need to go while you're building the home. I promise you on that. Typically in the Midwest, drops run around $95 a drop. And yes, that will add up over time. If you add 10, 15 drops, yes, that's a chunk of change. But I promise you it's triple, quadruple that if you ever had to add some cables later, unless you give yourself the ability to do that with some future-proofing methods. So, guys, plan your cable drops. Have a conversation. Talk to people. figure out where your TVs are going to go ahead of time, the best you can. Plan your rooms, get together, and just figure out how this stuff's going to be laid out so you guys can have a proper plan with your cabling. All right, last we're going to be talking about heat mapping, and that's what this part of the video is going to focus on. So once you kind of put together this plan, you figure out where your network head-in is going to be, and we kind of get a picture of that, and you figure out where all your drops are going to go, okay? We need to plan out our access points. And so we're going to move over to the screen now, and I'm going to show you how you can do that in your home. Now, again, remember, a little caveat, this is not going to be a deep dive in heat mapping. I'm not going to be explaining things. I'm just going to be explaining the overall concept. If you'd like a deeper dive, take a look at the descriptions for some of those courses. So let's go ahead and get started with how to properly heat map in your home so you can plan your access point locations. All right, guys. So Design Center is a really nice tool, especially if you're a fan of Ubiquiti and plan on using their equipment, where they allow you to sort of plan out your Wi-Fi and plan the coverage in your home. It is going to take a little bit of work. And again, I do have a course on this, but I just want to show you what the tool's about, show you how cool it is, what it can do for you here on YouTube, and just kind of give you a little taste of this, because this is going to help you plan the Wi-Fi in your home. Okay, so you're going to need a floor plan, and you're going to need to know some dimensions. Now, this particular floor plan here doesn't have any dimensions. I just know it because I used, dimensions from a plan that did. But basically, you're going to have to identify your scale of your home. It needs to know how long this wall is and how long this is and how tall your ceilings are. And so it's actually going to have you draw a line and tell the system how high the ceilings are and how long that line is, so it can do scale. Then when you add the equipment in, then you'll be able to, it'll give you a good, accurate reading on that. Secondly, you're gonna have to draw your walls in, right? Just having Wi-Fi on here with no walls drawn in doesn't help you. So it does take a little bit of work, and you'll get used to using the tool, but I'm going to just show you how easy it is to add walls. So once you get your floor plans in here and you get your scale, and keep in mind, I did multiple, so there's no way to put them all on one page. You're going to want to do like individual ones. So you'll upload your main floor, in our case, my basement, and second floor, and that way you have multiple, and then you can just switch between them as you're going through the different drawings. Okay, so we're just going to be right here on the main floor. I'm going to draw in this little part here that I took out so you guys can just see how easy that is, and then we're going to go ahead and put some Wi-Fi in here, and I'll show you a little bit about how that works. All right, so we're going to go up here. We have our scale ready. We're going to go ahead and click on Draw Walls. We're going to draw a wall, and then they have them broken down: glass, drywall, or concrete. Okay, so this is your really exterior walls. I would say are concrete typically. Even though a lot of our walls are drywall, there's still like siding and things to go through. Sometimes with basements there's concrete. So I typically draw all my exterior walls using the concrete setting, all my interior walls with drywall, and then all my windows with glass. So we're going to go ahead, and since this is part exterior to the house, I'm going to go ahead and choose concrete. I got a little cursor here that I can do, and you can see use the left click to draw a wall and right click to exit or cancel. So I'm going to click where I want to start. I'm going to go up. I want to turn a corner, so I'm going to click. It allows me to turn that corner. Then I'm going to click, and then I'm going to connect it. And when it connects, it automatically disconnects the tool when you connect it to another one. Okay, so I'm just going up and over and up. You can see it doesn't take much to draw this in. It's not a ton of work. It just takes a little bit of time. So now I'm going to switch over to glass. There is a little bit of drywall in between these windows, but not enough really to stop Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw it as if it's all glass. You can move it around by long pressing a left click button and kind of drag it where you need it. You can zoom way in if you need to kind of really get in here and draw a wall. You can zoom way out if you want to take a good look at it. So again, once you kind of get your wall in here on all the levels of your house, you're ready to start adding some Wi-Fi equipment. So we're going to talk about shopping and stuff as part of this. But typically when I'm doing Wi-Fi in a home, I really focus on ceiling mounted access points. They are not your only option, and we will talk about that later. So you may have to come back to this after you get to one of the later steps in my video series. You may come back and kind of rethink how you want to do it, and it's really easy. You just delete the APs you had and maybe redraw some a certain way. So I encourage you guys, before you really start putting pen to paper and planning this thing, watch my series all the way through so you really get a good picture of what you're designing here. All right, so this little button right here is place devices. So we're going to click on that and a menu is going to pop up over here. And we have switching, we have gateways, we have Wi-Fi, we have cameras. This thing can also help you plan cameras. So if you're curious about, you know, some camera coverage, you can use it and you just drop. I'm just dropping these cameras in, and then I right click to release the tool. Okay, and then I can come up over here. Right now it's showing me Wi-Fi coverage. I can switch it to camera coverage. So now these using Ubiquiti G5 cameras, and I can kind of see, you know, adjust which way I want them to go. Okay, put this out here. Let's say I want this to cover, you know, this will be on the eave corner of my house, and this is kind of covering the back of my house, so I can kind of adjust where I want it. But it'll give you a good idea of camera coverage in your home based off of what you need. Maybe this is your front driveway here, so you want to cover that area. You have a Ring doorbell, so we want a Ring doorbell. We can actually go add that, no problem. So we click over here, camera security. I think it's under this. It might be under door. Well, let's just see here. Nope, there it is, G4 doorbell. Okay, so we drop a doorbell in. And now we can shoot that straight out. So again, guys, you can use this to plan more than just your Wi-Fi. Now, keep in mind, this is using Ubiquiti cameras. It's not going to be the exact same if you're choosing a different PoE camera system or a different camera system, but it really is a nice way to kind of help plan, because a lot of the ratios of and angles that a camera can connect to are similar between the different models and different brands. So again, I find this is a really, really nice way to kind of help plan. So it can help do camera coverage. All right, so we're not focused on camera. We're going to talk about Wi-Fi, but I wanted to show you that exists. So I'm going to click on each one of these and delete them. Okay, we don't need them in our drawing right now. So I'm just clicking on them. You can duplicate them. So if I was going to have a doorbell in the front and the back, I can just click on it and duplicate it. Or you can click on it and delete it, which is what I'm doing. So just kind of keep in mind, it really is a great little tool here. All right, so my Wi-Fi, this area right here is a back porch, and then this is my garage. Okay, so I want good coverage in my garage because we entertain, and I obviously want some good coverage on my back deck because I want to sit out back and, you know, look out. I have a lake behind me, so I want to sit out there and sip my coffee in the morning and have some good Wi-Fi coverage. So let's go ahead and add some access points. I'm going to click on my place devices. We're going to go down to Wi-Fi. And then these round ones here are typically ceiling mounted devices, okay? Now, one recommendation based off of where we are right now, November of 2023, I wouldn't really recommend using AC Wi-Fi. I would recommend Wi-Fi 6 at a minimum. So anything that has a 6 in the name, U6 long range, U6 professional, U6 plus, there's a U6 U6 mesh. Those are the ones I would focus on, guys. I think there's a U6 Lite, I believe, or maybe the U6 Plus is the Lite. I can't remember. But like these AC Professional, AC HD, AC in-wall, I really wouldn't focus on those guys. I think AC is kind of on its way out. I would focus on Wi-Fi 6. I think you're going to get a better solution from that. Okay, so now, I personally like the U6 Professionals or the U6 Long Range. I think they're great devices. You really can't go wrong with either one. So for this video, we're going to focus on the U6 Professional. And once I click that, now I have an access point over here that I can just drop wherever I want. So we'll put one right there. And let's say I'm going to put one in my garage. Okay. Notice I'm showing camera coverage. We want to show Wi-Fi coverage. So when I switch that, and there is an on hover, so you can actually, if you just want to see what this one access point is doing, not both of them at the same time, you can switch it to hover. That way you're not wasting coverage too. A lot of people will just put access points all over the place and they overlap really great, but you want your Wi-Fi to work with each other, okay? You don't want to put 35 access points in your house if you don't need it. So this is a really nice way to see what this one's doing versus this one. But for our purposes, we're going to go ahead and turn on Wi-Fi coverage. All right, and then we have a little preferences over here. We can click on that, and you can show 2.4, you can show 5 gigahertz, and you can show 6 gigahertz if you are using a 6 gigahertz rated access point, which we don't have right now. So I like to plan my Wi-Fi for 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz does not travel as far in the home, but it does and it is a faster Wi-Fi signal. The frequency is faster. 2.4 covers farther. So if I was planning this 100% off 2.4, I'd probably just put maybe a single access point in my house. You can see the whole thing is green on 2.4, but on 5, you can see we got some dead spots and some stuff like that. So I like to plan my coverage using 5 gigahertz, and that's done right over here with the display options, okay? So I want good coverage over here. So if I put an access point over here, or maybe in my entryway, look, I got nice right through my windows, good coverage in my deal, but my garage is maybe lacking a little bit, right? It's just not quite as good as I want it to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a second access point on my main level. So we'll just duplicate that. We'll put this over in my entryway hallway. So now you can see I have good 5 gigahertz coverage pretty much everywhere. I know this is my pantry. I don't need good coverage in there. This is a guest room. This is my kitchen. This is my living room, back porch, and garage. You want to make sure you're covering your Wi-Fi in areas where you're going to entertain. So, and as you move these around, right, this is why we draw on the walls. You can see your coverage changing, and this is going to allow you to properly plan your access points where you need them. Once you get a good spot that you feel that you're covered on each of the floors. So, okay, this is, got to remember, we're just doing the main floor here. Okay, so let's go ahead and add one on our, whoops, go ahead and click our Wi-Fi. We're going to do a ceiling mounted U6 professional in the basement. Okay. And then on the second floor, we're going to go ahead and add a couple up there, or just one. So keep in mind too, and again, I go into this a lot more detail in this in the course, but you have to think of your house three-dimensional. We have an access point sitting right here where it says the word open, and we have an access point sitting about right in here, but on the main floor. So that coverage is going to filter up through the floors. So you got to remember, this is that access point sitting on the floor of this area right here, and this is an open air space over here. So so it's covering up. I don't have any walls restricting it. So do we need access points on both ends of my second floor? Well, that really depends on you, because I think you're going to get some coverage from the main floor access points. And so typically I don't bombard the second floor with access points, because I find that you're going to get good coverage from some of the basement, or from some of the main level or the floor below you. But you could very easily just add a couple up here. And again, a lot of this is determined based off your budget and all sorts of things, okay? So once you get your access points, you're just gonna have to remember to drop a cable to each one of these locations. All ceiling access points need to get a single gang low voltage box installed. And when we get to the installation part of this, I'll show you exactly why that's the case. Don't just dangle a cable through the ceiling, install it in a box. You will appreciate it. It's a lot easier. And if for some reason you don't use one of them, you can always just put a blank cover on it just to kind of hide that cable so you don't have to see it. So I highly, highly recommend having these put into a single gang box. And that's it, guys. Once you get this kind of drawn out, you can use this same plan and say, all right, maybe this isn't bedroom 2 at your house, it's office 1. So, you're like, all right, I'm going to put my office here. This is where my network head end is going to be. So all my cables are going to be pulled to this closet. I need a drop for my computer. My wife, she uses this bedroom for doing some of her work. So we're going to put a drop in there. We don't need anything in the master except for a TV. So you can kind of plan this out and figure out exactly how you're going to do your cabling ahead of time. The last thing I will talk about, and I just realized I forgot about it, so we're going to kind of circle back here, but let's go back to the main floor and let's talk about outdoor Wi-Fi. So you can tell from these access points that the second these go through these quote unquote exterior concrete whatever walls, your Wi-Fi drops. Okay, so if I was in my basement, and I have a walkout basement on this property, you can see that out here it's a little spotty. This is where my patio is, and I got a seating area out here. It's a bit spotty. So you can cover that in a couple different ways. You can either move this access point closer over here so it shoots over there better, right? And just it's about where you place that access point, right? And if you have more walls drawn in here, maybe by moving it over here, you're sacrificing some of the coverage over here, right? So you got to kind of plan this. The better recommendation, in my opinion, is to put an outdoor access point for your outdoor entertaining. And some of these, if I go over here to my devices, there are some Ubiquiti has some outdoor options. For Wi-Fi 6, though, their only outdoor rated access point is this U6 mesh. So it is an outdoor rated access point, and we would actually put that right here on the outdoors of the house, and you can see that we are just all green out there now, right? So if I switch this over to hover, and I just hover over that, you can see some of it's going to come in, so you're going to have to kind of plan that accordingly, you know, based off of, you know, things coming into the house. But at the same time, and then you can kind of do this. Maybe this goes over here, and that's like that, right? Okay, you want to make sure your bedroom's covered, which looks like we're all green, but this is going to give you great outdoor coverage area. And that's what this is really about. We want to make sure that you have good Wi-Fi coverage. And like I explained earlier, Wi-Fi doesn't always go from indoors to outdoors very well. Now, you may have, your situation may dictate some different things. Maybe you have outdoor cameras that you're trying to, you know, make sure you have good Wi-Fi coverage, and you're going to use outdoor access points to provide that coverage. That is up to you. That's no problem. For what I'm doing, I recommend hardwired cameras. Ubiquiti has some great options, some very affordable options. And if you use the Unifi Dream Machine Pro, which you will see later, that actually has a built-in NVR into it where you just add a hard drive and all of a sudden you have a local camera storage location that you can access your cameras from anywhere. So I really do like the Ubiquiti security solution. It does a pretty darn good job. So we're going to go shopping here in a later video. I just wanted to kind of cover how to plan your cable drops, things you need to consider, and I hope you got a good feel for how that's done here using their Design Center heat mapping tool. All right, back to the video. Okay, guys, that's it for this video. I encourage you, please tune into the series. We're going to keep these things rolling out, keep that train rolling down the tracks. The next video we're going to talk about is actually going out. We're going to go shopping. We're going to price this thing out. What's this thing going to cost you? And I think between these first two videos, you're really going to paint a good picture about A, what this thing's going to cost overall, and also what this network's going to look like. So it's really exciting stuff. We're going to go out on Ubiquiti's website. We're going to price all this out. We're going to talk about sizing properly your switch based off of your needs and just really take a deep dive into really putting this thing together so you buy the right parts the first time and can feel confident in what you're working on. So I encourage you guys, like, follow, share this video. If you have questions or something you want to make sure we cover in the video, please leave a comment. Let me know. This is a revolving wheel. I am taking considerations and comments from you guys to make sure we get it all included because I want this to be helpful. I want this to be beneficial. It's not exactly a cookie cutter system. Everybody's house is a little bit different. Everybody's needs are a little bit different. Where you need Wi-Fi, how you're doing your streaming, the technology going in your homes, things like that, your security. So, everybody's house is a little bit different, but this will give you a very, very good and solid foundation for how to plan the network portion of the house really, really well. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know if there's something you'd like to see, and we'll see you down the road in a future video. Appreciate it.